So, Saf, thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for agreeing today. Just for the people who don't know who you are, can you just give us an overview of who you are, what you do, and what your business does?
Fantastic, Dave. Always good to talk to you, and always good to catch up. You and I have known each other for a few years. Obviously, we're from a similar background in terms of the skill sector, and that's how we got to meet. And I kept on seeing you at conferences, and we were at these sort of learning events, and you were there, and we always had a fantastic conversation. And that's where our sort of connection initially started. So obviously from the skill sector. But I would regard myself as a social investor, social entrepreneur. I would say I started fairly late in life as a business person, entrepreneur, around the sort of 29, 30 mark, which to a certain level is a little bit late. But so I've been in business now for 20 years or thereabouts. Involved in home care market, the domiciliary care market. Obviously that's a growing sector. For the last few years, been involved in the foster care sector as well. People generally know me for Pathway Group, which is a skills-based business, and been doing that, as I said, for about 20 years. Apprenticeships, started off back in the day with Train to Gain and various other things as well. But that's really, I would say, what most people know me for.
Yeah. And what made you kind of take that leap to step into your first business then? What made you ready around that 30-year-old mark?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was a natural entrepreneur, David. I mean, my thoughts were to progress as a career, and my father, obviously had a big influence in terms of, professional career. Yeah. And it wasn't about entrepreneurship, it was about education. It was about actually trying to do the best that you can and grow yourself within an industry, and have some technical sort of knowledge and so forth. So I was in between the accounting profession and financial services profession. So my degree was in banking and financial services, and I wanted to become a banker, or in the sort of in that sort of market. And he had a good reputation. Obviously since then, the whole world has changed, but at the time, it was a good sector. And I thought, if banking doesn't work, if I can't get a job in, say, as in the sort of stock exchange or in the financial, in that sort of banking sector, financial services sector, then maybe accounting. And so I was looking at those particular routes, and my initial sort of first few jobs were, working for the local authority, budget support officer, working, within British Gas, Transco, in the sort of accounts department, meter reads, analysis, a lot of sort of data, numbers, number crunching. I was quite good with numbers mainly, and a lot of sort of statistical stuff. I moved that to financial services, went into sort of look at the whole actuarial market, so pensions, pension review, pension calculations, miscalculations. So a lot of calculations, stats related stuff, and did that, and to a certain level, I moved from that to thinking that I feel a bit of a void, and I'm not progressing, and to be much sort of although I'm doing okay, and I'm sort of getting my qualifications, I'm getting one qualification after another, and so forth, and there's natural sort of growth happening, and I'm I had a few jobs from one to another. I went into contracting. I thought, it's just, there's a bit of a void, I need to do something else, and started I think the current terminology is like a side hustle, sideline type of business, which is really how. So I've got my full-time job, and started, I call it a side hustle, but it's more of a community venture in terms of trying to give back as well, but also trying to develop myself in terms of open my eyes in terms of what's going on in the marketplace. And I set up a community venture, and which was back in 99, 2000. While I've got a career, and started sort of working with people who needed assistance in terms of legal advice, and we applied as a citizens sort of advice bureau, local community advice bureau, registered with, and got some funding as well from the local government, got some funding from various other trusts and so forth, and set up a sort of advice bureau, very similar to Citizen Advice Bureau in the Spark Hill, Birmingham area, giving people advice on housing, benefits, money advice, immigration, schooling, all of those sort of general advice aspect of it. And just by chance, I mean, again, I would say it's just by chance, and being there at the opportunity and really seeing the opportunity. A lot of the FE colleges at the time, and we're talking about probably double or triple the colleges that were there at that time than what they are now. So there's a lot of, even in Birmingham, there was probably about 12 colleges, FE further education colleges, and there was a lot of competition even between the colleges. So now you've got some like 3 super colleges, but at the time there was like 12. And one of our local colleges, Hall Green College, which we were just around the corner from, wanted to do more engagement, community outreach, and they wanted really the clients that were coming into our centres, they wanted to get them onto some courses, predominantly ESOL, and they spoke to us about referral fees and whether they could use our centre. We had a small community centre that we were able to get from the local authority on good terms. So they wanted to use our premises to deliver classroom activity, which initially we thought, okay, can we do more than just you using our premises? Rather than just you coming in, can this be more of a partnership type arrangement? And the person who was in charge said, yes, you know what, we're interested in people who can assist us in other areas of Birmingham and even the wider West Midlands to grow our community outreach provision. So if you've got networks and contacts within the communities, and at that time there's a whole dearth of asylum seekers that came in from different areas, and the colleges were really eager to enter the whole refugee asylum seeker market to try and get the sort of ESOL qualifications predominantly. There's a fair amount of money that the further education colleges had for that, and I think their problem was really the engagement. I mean, now if you go and contact one of the colleges, their waiting lists are huge, and they haven't got the capacity predominantly. But at that time, there's a lot of growth there, a lot of opportunities there. So for me, I just saw that as an opportunity, and I just asked really to say, you know what, okay, you're interested in renting our premises, but could we do a bit more? I don't know much about it, but I'm sure we can assist you. Just tell us what you do and sort of guide us, and we'll be, we'll obviously hopefully be an asset to you and to you as a college, and they gave us an opportunity. And at the time it was Further Education Funding Council, FEFC, and even how they paid us, I didn't know how it worked, and so it was a subcontract arrangement, and it was all units at the time, and we got paid. I think it was about £6 a unit. They were getting £18, so you're effectively getting a third of what it is. So it's like getting 33% of what the drawdown is now, and we were getting that, and from that 33%, we paid our staff costs from there as well. So obviously we paid our staff costs, our rent costs, and so forth. So they've got 70% of the market. My figures are my figures are a little bit all over the place, but they've got 66% of the market of the profit, but not really doing any work. And I thought, okay, fantastic. So I thought, you know what, it's probably time now for us to maybe rebroker a deal and see if they're willing to do so. And at the first opportunity, I think they were very reluctant, because I thought, you know what, we've invested time and effort on these guys, and I thought they weren't prepared to do it. And the only way that sometimes works is if you have a counter offer. So we went and spoke to another college and another provider, which says, actually, you know what, we'll give you £8 a unit. And after that, it went to £10 a unit, and obviously there was an element of that, and we also felt that we don't want to change partnerships from one to another. Eventually, all 3-4 of them became one college anyway. To be frank with you, they merged all together, but they had their sort of competition at the early days, and a bit of rivalry, and we sort of learned from that as well, and we also sort of learned our sort of craft and trade, and it came it came to a bit of a shock, and it just all closed down fairly quickly. All subcontracting just became very bad, and I think this is sort of tightened the whole market back in sort of 2002, 3. And I thought, okay.
Do you think we're going to see that again now?
It's probably about, I mean, I've been in the sector 20 years, and it changes. It changes every single time. Now it's like a bad thing, even in the FE Week paper help newsletter is like they want to just stamp out all contracting and just go to direct contracts. I think subcontracting is a positive thing. I think it brings people into the marketplace. It brings people who are often lean, agile, who can get into networks, who can do a lot. They've got the hunger, they've got the desire.
Well, this is my take on business is, if we only ever had the same business as we've always ever had, there'd be no hunger to drive things forward, no competition, no new competition. In recruitment, and obviously I know you deal in recruitment yourself, there's always new recruitment companies coming into the market with new ideas, fresh ideas, mixing it up where you have to keep on your toes. To stop all new entrants to the market, I just think is ridiculous, because you're stopping then people leaving a business and setting up something better than what's already there. I get there's got to be tighter controls over subcontracting, but that's for the primes to manage and with the ESFA. But to stop subcontracting, I think, is a bad thing, because especially if you go back 20 years ago where your journey began you were able to subcontract and offer a better provision to the local people of Birmingham and the surrounding areas because you understood the local market. Some big organisations don't. So the big primes that have got the money need the pathway groups of the world to be involved with the asylum seekers and be involved with the people who need help. To stop that, I think would be a tragedy, really.
And David, I mean, the other thing is, I mean, our market, our sector is very unique, where a new entrant can't come in unless they've got some sort of somebody sort of godfather trying looking after them, or a prime or a lead that takes them under their belt. It's not like any other sector where you can the route for entry isn't. It's not. There's no other way of coming in, really. It's not very difficult unless you acquire something else, or it's a very difficult route. I know people have got sometimes new companies and they've applied for ROTAP and so forth, but from the rest of the skill sector, it's quite a difficult sector to break in. It's a difficult sector to break in,
and when you're in, it's a very difficult sector to stay in. And that's a testament to you and your business for 20 years in the sector, because you have seen so many changes. I mean, how do you keep up with the different changes? How do you stay on top of things?
I think firstly, I mean, we've heard this term about resting on your laurels. That's the first thing. I mean, there's an element of hunger, there's an element of growth. There's also, you've got to, and I think we all go into sort of certain dips where we have problems and worries and so forth. And for me, it's about, you've got to have that vision, but it's also really being able to have the team that you develop that you can rely on, trust, and a lot of it depends on that. I mean, you talk about, our strengths back in the day was actually talking to these hard to reach individuals, which probably were disengaged from the colleges, and they never had people who could talk to them at that level. And because we were in that area, we were seen as one of those individuals, and we were able to go out and get the numbers in terms of outreach. But our strength wasn't, we didn't know much about curriculum, quality, awarding bodies, all of those sort of things were new to us at that time. So we played on our strengths. And I think there's going to be certain things which you are very good at, and certain things that are going to be things which you find very difficult. And sometimes what happens is we stretch ourselves to the point where you focus on the new things or the things that you may be not so good at, and that takes more of your time. And then what happens is the things that you play to your strengths, you're spending less time on. So as naturally as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, we want to stretch ourselves, and the way we do that is try and do things new all the time. And sometimes these new things take a lot longer. They sometimes can drain you. Sometimes, there's obstacles and so forth, which is not a bad thing in its own self, but then you sometimes lose focus on the other aspect of it. And it's a combination of things. It's a combination of, so I've made all those mistakes, and it's about, making small mistakes as opposed to, having catastrophic, massive issues. So, you can deal with the contract and to a certain level, if it doesn't work, as long as you can survive and come out of it, it's no big thing. But it's about, it's about not necessarily putting all your eggs in that basket. And if you do, make sure that you've got 100% of your eyes on that basket as well. So a combination of things, and we could probably be talking about those stories and that journey, but it's that constant hunger and constant desire and just keeping yourself on your toes. Never resting on your toes.
Are you still as hungry now as you were 20 years ago, or has it grown?
I think we go through sort of dips to a certain level, and we're always looking for challenges. And I think when the challenges stop, you start looking elsewhere in terms of what else. And it's easy sometimes then to see. At times it's like, initially in the early days, I was absolutely obsessed with this business. Absolutely, I was thinking about it all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On your sort of PC, laptop. Every single time you think about it, and you look at somebody else and you think, what they're doing, and you're always thinking about and learning, and you're sort of like a sponge. You're taking things in, and you're constantly growing and so forth. And then that naturally isn't going to last 20 years. It's just not going to be the same. So you're going to go through periods. And it's really understanding what that period. So when we're now sort of writing tenders and so forth, that gives me a little bit of buzz, because there's an excitement of, we might get this, visualizing it and so forth, putting things in place. So you go through periods of sort of motivation, and motivation to a certain level, it's not constant. It dips up and down and so forth. And you've got to go back to, okay, I'll leave that to these guys. I'll come back to this and so forth. And it's about how you keep, how do you stay loving with your business? And it's the basics are there, the purpose and all the rest of it is there, and it's about really what works best for you. But it is, it is a long, it is a journey, and it changes.
It does. And how have you managed? How have you found it? Because you have now multiple businesses, not just the training side, the recruitment, things like that. How do you keep on top of all of the different businesses? How have you found and juggled that? In an ideal world, I would have split my time, a third. I mean, the three main businesses, just so there are a few others as well, but the smaller parts and so forth. But I would say it depends on what the focus and the priorities are, I live and breathe Pathway Group. That's my sort of day job as such. So I'm spending most of my time here, but we have an events company as well. We run the what's now the BAME Apprenticeship Awards. We've got the not-for-profit BAME Apprenticeship Alliance that we run as well, which is a membership organisation promoting the BAME Apprenticeship agenda. We run events like Business Book Awards, the Pathway to Grow, networking events as well. So there's a few things that are there. But my focus would change. I mean, I might work 2 or 3 days solidly on the Apprenticeship Awards, because that's where the focus needs to be, because we're at the planning stages, or we're at the sort of the awards coming coming in a couple of weeks' time, and I need to know what's going on and so forth. So the focus will change, and the variety changes as well. I've had periods where I've done nothing but Pathway for 3 months, and not been involved with that. I'm still getting my emails and so forth, but I'm not actively spoken to anybody or done anything in some of the other businesses. And other times I've sort of done 5 or 6 different things in a day. And it just changes, just priorities and what's important and so forth. It's just having a sense of of what's important for you at that time and where your time needs to be.
and where you can make the biggest difference. And other times it's also really understanding, am I actually just meddling here, or am I actually contributing? and it's that difference. And sometimes people want you to be there, and other times they want space, and it's really having that little bit of emotional savviness, intelligence to say, okay, you know what, they're fine there. They're happy there. They're doing what it is, and give them the space. If they, I'm here if you need to, and allowing people to do so. And I think if you can give people the space and the encouragement, and you can create environments where it's trusted relationships and in safe zones where they can talk to you openly as and when, and they copy you in. You can then, you can have a little bit of a fluid type of arrangement as opposed to a bit more structured. And say, you know what, I've got to have a 9 o'clock meeting with you on this particular day, and I've got to have this catch up with you on this particular day. So, there is some of that, but there has to be some flexibility, particularly within your leadership team.
And in terms of business, what has been your biggest challenge that you've faced?
Various challenges. I think for the first one is trying to establish a name for yourself and getting the position where people treat you seriously, to be one of the organizations that people speak about positively, to be in those circles where people recognize you and think of you. And I always want to be in a position where, if somebody, if a college or anybody else is thinking about partnerships and they think, well, we need to do something in the Birmingham area or in the West Midlands area, I would hope that our name comes into the conversation in some aspects of it. And it's really, how do we get that? How are we known for that, and what are we known for? So for me, it's not necessarily my black book and my contact base in terms of who I know, but it's about who knows me or our organisation, or what do they know us for, and it's really that credibility. So if I know you, Dave, as a troubleshooter, as somebody who could solve a problem for me, then as soon as I think about that problem, I think, what, I need to contact Dave for this. That's exactly what we want to do. Where they think, what, we could do with, a partner that can help us. We're writing a particular bid. Who would come in? Who's got the values? Who's got the credibility? And who would actually add weight and add strength to our bid? And and rather than us knocking on their door all the time, they say, actually, would you be interested? And it's really that positioning. And if you can get that positioning right, which doesn't happen overnight, if you get that positioning right, build your reputation, and if somebody says, what do you think about Pathway, and person turns around and says, I think that, I've heard about them, and even if I've not done sort of business with us directly, if they can say at least something positive, then that's a big achievement for us. So it's that, the name, the reputation, the brand, what it means to them, as opposed to me saying, or us saying that, we know everybody in the sector. That's, for me, that doesn't mean it. It's the sector and the people and the key people knowing you, and what do they know you for.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say has been your biggest successes?
A number of successes, David. I mean, for me, back in the days, getting a direct ESFA contract was a big one, absolutely big one. To get a prime lead contract. When you're in the subcontracting arena, and to hold a contract in your own right, where that's you're the decision maker. It's you running that contract. It's how and you can grow that contract, and you've got control over that contract. That's a massive play of it just turns the whole thing down. I mean, we all dance to the tunes of lead providers, and each lead provider, prime provider, is different. And sometimes they're positive, and sometimes it can be a headache. And they've got their own ways of doing these things, and we're so grateful, because at the end of the day, they're our paymasters, and we're grateful for the opportunity. But you've got to dance to their tunes, and you've got to dance to what it is. And sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it doesn't. But we go along with it. We go along with it. But the control isn't in your hands. They may, and they plan short term as well. So they start thinking 2-month cycles, 3-month cycles. We want a year ahead. I mean, we're not talking about 5 years. We just want a year security, as opposed to 2 months or 3 months. And we don't get that. You can't get that. But getting a direct contract the first time any organisation gets that, you've got some security, and the powers just change, and you think, wow, I can grow this now. Now, this is in my hands, and I can grow that. So that was a big one. If I may, another big one for me was entering into the welfare to work market. So as you know, Dave, you've got this whole skills market, which is funded by ESFA and Department of Education and so forth. And then we have this employability sector, which in some aspects of it is trying to do the same thing, but it's funded from a different funding stream, different department, Department for Work and Pensions, and you've got the DWP, and you've got your skills and Department of Education, but there's a lot of crossover, massive amounts of crossover, and the two don't meet in many cases. So you've got a whole welfare to work sector. So we're in the skills sector, and the welfare to work sector sort of looks down on the skills sector, and skills sector thinks, we're doing all the work, and it's us guys and so forth, and the two are doing their things independently. And there's a little bit of crossover sometimes, but they're independent in some aspects of it. So we have this ambition of, we want to become a provider in the welfare to work arena, which was quite new for us, or quite new for a lot of particularly small skills providers. So we went into the whole market of becoming a subcontractor initially for other providers, for the leads, for the leads in terms of the flexible New Deal, the New Deal programs, and then moved on to getting a work program. So in 2011, we were one of what we call end-to-end providers for in-training. And that was a big thing for us. We established ourselves in Walsall. We established ourselves in a part of Birmingham as well. And we were dealing with job centre referrals, getting people back into employment. And obviously we were able.
And how different was that? How different was that as a business? Did you have to recruit new people, new mindsets, from the skill side to the welfare to work side? How much more difficult was it?
There is some crossover. I mean, the job titles are different. You're talking about employability coaches, job coaches, and they think a little bit more like DWP. It's job centre referrals. It's putting them on systems, trying to encourage them to get employment, looking through their CVs and sort of the basic sort of stuff. And you're dealing with a lot of volume often. You're dealing with a lot of volume, and it becomes a numbers thing. You've got 100 referrals coming in maybe for a particular job coach, or they're your clients, and you've just got targets in terms of getting into jobs. And there's only so much you can do with them, and it's about motivating them, inspiring them individually. And what you find is that there are some self-starters, self-motivators, but you've got to do a little bit less work. And then there's others who are potentially you've got to do a lot more work. And what you find is that the job coaches look at the ones that you do less work with because they can hit their targets. And what you find is that it comes eventually where you've got massive pools of people where you can get some quick hits at the early days, but it's about really the long term. So from that perspective, there was an element of, the culture of DWP is a little bit slower, I would say, in terms of, particularly at the time that we were in, it's doing things at a certain pace. It's very aligned to the job centre. It's about, a lot of the time it was about, we called them customers, but they weren't treated as customers. In some cases, they were treated more in terms of a bit of annoyance in some cases. And in our sector now in skills, we customer is number one. You look at getting the best for them, and you really make a difference. And I'm not being negative on the welfare to work sector, but and I'm sure it's changed, but at the time, in our experience, and we were running that contract from 2011 right up to sort of 2018, it was completely different from skills. And even though people talk about the two, need to work together, there was an element of cultural differences and attitude differences and so forth, and also to a certain level, if you're dealing with people all the time who've got barriers, constraints, it sometimes mentally drains you as a job coach as well, because we are we're all about the people that we surround ourselves with. So if there's always negativity, always barriers, and if you're feeling that constantly, it does bring you down as well. So I could relate to the job coaches on that market, but it's a difficult area. But you are dealing often with people who are at the lower rung of the ladder, really. And even then, Dave, it's like poverty issues and in-work poverty, all of those things. You start seeing, and you actually start seeing people's issues where previously you're thinking, if anybody wants a job, you can get a job, but there were barriers and there were things that we had to work on. And it wasn't as straightforward as, come on, just go out and do it. You had to go through the whole mindset aspect of it, and a lot of it is all about the mindset, really. And some of those obstacles were, in our eyes, might be small obstacles, but for somebody else, it's a mammoth issue.
Yeah, and in terms of, you were one of the winners in terms of the devolution. What do you think devolution's done? Has it been a good thing? How have you guys approached it? What do you think that the future potential that lies in the devolved areas?
Yeah, so we were very eager in terms of, obviously, firstly, the whole change in terms of our education budget and the things that were planned. I mean, we're going back to Lord Heseltine sort of ambition in terms of devolved economies and going to away from London into the local regions. So we were very eager, and also at the same time, we were ambitious, but also a little bit worried more than anything else, because you're going through a process. You don't know what the outcome might be. So, and you can only do your best. So we looked at where could we put a reasonable offer, and our areas were, we picked 3 areas really: London, Greater London, the Greater Manchester, and the West Midlands. And in the initial the first round of devolution, we were successful in London. We were the biggest provider in Lot 2 in the GLA, which was the employed AEB, and in GMCA we were probably one of the smaller providers, but we've got a contract there, which is a combination of employed and unemployed. So in London, it's all employed. In the GMCA, it's a combination of the two. We didn't get anything in the West Midlands directly. And
were you more shocked you won the other 2 areas and not the area where you began your journey?
Yeah. So we thought, people traditionally would probably know us as a Birmingham West Midlands based organisation. We've been here a long time. It's our strength. We've got a lot of our infrastructure here. We've got, we've been working here for many years, and when I looked at the winners list and saw organisations from the Northwest, organisations from the London area winning in our area, I thought, okay, they haven't really got the infrastructure, but obviously they've written a bid which ticks all the boxes, or has ticked the right boxes, and has got more points in certain aspects of it. Likewise, we can't complain because we've won in London and we've won in Manchester as well. So yes, I was a little bit disappointed and personally hurt in the fact that we never, West Midlands, we've been sort of supporting them, working with them. Anything that they need in terms of consultation or any aspect of it, we're engaged, and it's not, and we spend a heck of a time, a lot of time and effort and resources to make sure we're actually engaged in these areas, and we're contributing to the LEPs. We're attending all the meetings, and any time there's something where they want input, we're always contributing, and whenever they needed us, we're there, and we did all of that. And I thought, okay, this was purely on the bid, and the people who know us probably not involved in the bid, and this is somebody just looking at it from what they've written. It's just a black and white exercise, and we've just clearly not done enough.
And I don't think I don't think that is logical in this kind of bit, because for 20 years you've been supporting people of the West Midlands, from Birmingham, Walsall, everywhere in the surrounding areas, and you've won big in a newer region for you, I would say, in terms of London. You didn't win anything in your hometown, where really that should have been reversed. You should have won big at home and maybe smaller contracts in other areas.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't just award on a bid. You've got to look at the background and the fundamentals of the business, do you not think?
Yeah. I think that was the ambition initially, isn't it? To get local procurement locally, the people who are there know best for the area, but then there's procurement rules. And procurement rules are procurement rules, and what you find is the intention is there, but you've got to go through the whole sort of procurement process, and there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. So and it moves away from people making decisions in terms of what they see out there to basically what you can put on paper. And that's the thing. So there's going to be losers out there. There's going to be losers, particularly smaller organisations, in many cases, who haven't got the resources to write these bids, who haven't got the resources and the track record possibly, and in some cases, a lot of the bids they're not that regional as well. They want you to deliver in multi-regions within a bigger region. So the radius so we did eventually win Dave, in terms of with West Midlands Combined Authority. So we won recently for the Commonwealth Games, which starts in August. That's a very small contract, though. It's just level 3 qualifications, very similar to career development loans or career learning loans, and it's about digital qualifications at level 3, and it's a small contract. And we won, and we won as a subcontractor to Serco, as you're aware. So we were part of the Serco supply chain, and Serco subcontracts or everything that they get as well. And we were one of the 5 providers there. For the AEB in terms of that. So we still managed to be part of it, but even then you've got to deliver in certain catchments, and the profiles are sort of stretched to a sort of level. We need something in Sandwell. We need X amount of numbers in Sandwell. We need something in Coventry. We need something in a Black Country area. And for somebody who maybe is a Black Country provider, then it's going to be hard for them to pick up a Black Country one, because that's not how contracts are given. So what you find is that they're losing out on the AEB aspect of it, and there's not enough there to look at these providers on a maybe more third level basis. They're probably third level sort of providers really. And that opportunity isn't there, and it's not really encouraged. And so the organisations, and which we were one of them back when we started, the small specialists in a particular region, our Spark Hill, that sort of B11 postcode, Birmingham sort of postcode, we couldn't deliver in Black Country. We never had the infrastructure. You're talking 10 miles. It's 10 miles, which is nothing in terms of what we're used to now, Dave. But our centre is there. We can't look after clients 10 miles away. We can't even look after clients in some cases 3 or 4 miles away from Sparkhill to Washerheath. And in some cases, people in Washerheath won't go to Sparkhill. There's just an area, and it's that's just how it is. And it's not just a Birmingham thing. It's generally many areas where people are really focused in their own sort of postcodes, and unless the services are there and you're providing there, that they're not likely to go somewhere else.
And how has COVID affected you as a business? What have you guys done during the COVID period? I think
to a certain level, it took us by surprise. We underestimated it. To some aspects of it, and I think. For us is we had a couple of projects. We were talking about digital and allowing people to have the flexibility of working from home and using more digital applications and so forth. And we've been talking about it for 3 years, and we had a plan, business plan. We're going to do this in 2016, 17, 18, 19, actually more than 3 years. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 5 years. About it. And it's like every time it's there, we're we want 10%, and there was something called the FELTAG review back in sort of 5-6 years ago, and says 10% of your provision needs to be digital and so forth. And we thought, we need to benchmark and so forth, and we just never got around to it. And it's very similar, David. It's like sometimes you have a target of we want X amount of commercial income. We don't want to rely too much on some of these contracts and tenders. We want X amount of activity from commercial, and you never get around to hitting those targets because you get so busy in terms of the other contracts and so forth. So it's very similar to us in terms of the digital targets we had. We never really got around to it, and we invested in the IT platforms, but implementation was always difficult. So we had tools such as OneFile, and we were sort of phasing them, and our timescales were like, we're going to do this over 15 months. We're going to do this over 12 months. In terms of Microsoft Teams, we bought the solutions years back, and so we were only using a very, very small part of it. So we got the whole Microsoft Teams Outlook, the whole sort of Office 365, the whole cloud implementation, and we're sort of hybriding, and we're still using some parts of it, and it's just slow, and then you train people, and then people forget, and people move on, and so forth, and you never really implement it. And so for us, this was a big bang implementation. We've got to do it, and we've turned it around within a week, or less than a week, 4 days. Everybody was online, everybody was trained up. All our meetings were done online. So real collaborative. It's not just about here's a Zoom call and so forth. Actually sharing documents, sharing resources, working online. Resources were digitalized, standardized, and when you've got to do it, you've got to do it. And
it's great. And to be fair, I had Capital City College Group on last week. He said their 5-year digital plan they did in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I had Dan Shelley on from Sussex Coast College Group. Their 5-year digital plan they did in a week. So your 5-6 year digital plan you did in 4 days. So it just proves what you can do.
You had to, and everybody came in. There was no excuses. This is you had to. And when
do you think you'll ever go back to an old way of working, or do you think it's formed new ways of working moving forward?
They say the new norms, isn't it? And we've sort of unlearned to a certain level. So there's certain things that we've unlearned, and we've relearned it. And I think even to a certain level, I think it's now. I've to be frank with you, I've never. Until this period, I've never had a Zoom call or a Skype call. People used to say, I want to do a Skype. I said, I don't do Skype. Face-to-face. Even if I have to travel, the whole day and come back, I'll do face-to-face for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You've done the same, Dave. We've gone for a half an hour meeting, travel the whole day. And I'm okay with that because I can make a couple of telephone calls along the line and along the way. I can do a little bit of other stuff, and I'm okay with face-to-face, and I prefer face-to-face wherever I can.
For me, Saf, is I was always used to going out to work and spending the whole day at work, and coming in when the kids are there and things like that. And you're right, I'd travel to Birmingham, 3 hours on the train there, 3 hours on the train back for 1 hour meeting. Yeah. So 7 hours of the day for 1 hour of a productive meeting. And I'd sit on the train, I'd do work, do emails, do whatever, watch a bit of Netflix, whatever I was doing. Yeah. Now I've learned new habits where actually I enjoy that. Not that I didn't enjoy that time with my kids before, but we've learned new ways of spending that time together, where before it was always they go to school or they go to football, or we'd always be busy, where now we can get together in the house and we can form a new relationship. So I definitely think moving forward, I will choose my travelling time more wisely. However, I still do miss a face-to-face shaking hands, meeting, and getting to know people like that way.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody said to me, I mean, I was a little bit negative on the whole online type meetings, and if somebody said to me, I want to meet with you, but can we do a Skype call? I just nod my head, shake my head really to say, if they can't be bothered, see me, or forget it. And for me, I wanted to sort of see the person. And they talk about communication, and a lot of it is about body language and all the rest of it. Yes, and for me now, it's like it's become a bit more habitual in terms of and because we've done it over a period of time, it becomes a bit natural. Where prior to this, it was really alien. And so in terms of going back, I think, as I said, we've unlearned some of these things. I'm much more comfortable myself in terms of having these meetings, having these conversations, doing it myself as well, setting up Zoom, so, which is not, it's an easy thing, but, there's always an obstacle. I don't know this, I don't know how to use, I don't know, but it's using collaborative tools, working on the same document at the same time, and particularly when there's a relationship already there, I think it's a very easy thing, and you and I say, for example, meet up on this, it's the same because, we've got a relationship already. Yeah. We know each other for a while. It's the same, and I think when you're forming sometimes relationships with new people, maybe you need maybe a meeting as well, face to face, just to sort of, it doesn't have to be right at the beginning, but it does help as well, I think. But it's it'd be good if we can get the balance right. It would. But there you go.
I've got a couple more questions for you, Saf. So if you could have a magic wand and change anything you wanted about FE, what would you change?
FE is very frustrating, David. It's just, you just think, what, we're doing what we're doing, and sometimes you feel you're up against the world, and you're up against certain things. And you're thinking there's always a shortage of funding, there's always a shortage of this, you're always fighting for funds, fighting for activity. There's no shortage of clients, I feel. I mean, the people are there, there's work there, but it's the funding aspect of it. There seems to be lack of, particularly when if you're able to bring clients who've got a genuine need. There just doesn't seem to be the availability of the right funds, and it's really getting the funds right. And sometimes you might have, and it's like sometimes you may have something else but not what you need. And so forth. So what happens is that you go to a provider or an employer, and you've got a relationship, and you can't service all their needs, and then you've got to go out there and try and source this and source that and source that, and it's just impossible. It's like you've got a customer in front of you, and they want a particular service, and they think you should have that as a provider, as an apprenticeship provider. They think actually, we can do this, but we can't do this. We can do this, we can't do that, and it's too bitty. And so when you think about the whole 365 of a customer relationship, and the ecosystem of products, it's you got this, but you haven't got this, or we can do this, but we can't do this, and it's just too fragmented, and you can't do anything about it, and you just gotta try and knock on doors of see if you can work with partnership with people and so forth. So a lot of the time it's being able to service people, particularly when there's a genuine need. A lot of the time we sometimes struggle. This fragmented approach of funding, the fragmented approach of actually just even if it was like I've got a customer here. This is what they need. Can we get a little bit of traineeship for this person? Get a little bit of apprenticeship for this person, and so maybe whatever that body is, okay, because it's employer-led, that's fine. That's a sign. You're the preferred provider. We'll give you X amount of traineeship, X amount of apprenticeship, X amount of AEB. You can service that client. We can't do that. Back in the days, you probably could have back in sort of the tech days. It was employer-focused. Needed, and we're the preferred partner for that employer, but we can't service their needs. So the employer comes to us and we say, actually, you know what, hands up, I can't help you.
I'll try my best, but
I've got to go running around. It might take me
Might take us a while. I know. I get that. I do get that. And final question, Saf. We're going to have a dinner party. You can have 3 guests of your choice, either alive or dead. Who would you choose?
Who would I use? Who would I bring on board? Okay. I mean, I'll go for names, which I would say are names that I wouldn't normally meet, and I do look up to, and I feel I can learn from them, and particularly if it's a very small dinner party, you develop a relationship. So for me, the first one is Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Used to be a cricketer. I'm a bit of a cricketing fan. He's had a journey. He's had a massive struggle. He had an ambition, which people were laughing at him, absolutely making fun of him, to say, you know what, you got no chance. You're seen as a playboy. What are you doing in terms of looking to become Prime Minister of a fairly reserved Islamic sort of country, your background and so forth, and it just didn't work. And he was talking about making change. He was talking about actually getting rid of the sort of it was like an oligarchy type system, and justice, really. So he started the Justice Party, and just really had that struggle. But I think his first journey was really building a cancer hospital in Pakistan, and that journey is just mind-boggling to see somebody who's got sort of Western thinking, who's been a bit of a, as I said, a playboy, who's been in the Western field, who's got a Western outlook, and then he's sort of gone in and brought that sort of mindset into a country where we need to change, we need to move away, and we need to justice for the poor, and try and look at that. And for me, hats off to him in terms of that. I've just thought to myself, I think they're all politicians actually now.
Oh yes.
So the next one for me is, and this might sound very, very, very strange. It's Margaret Thatcher, and it, yeah, I know. So
she's not well liked up in the northeast.
I know, and but it's the journey. It's the journey. Yeah. It's the person, and what you've got individuals who it's that story of being a daughter to effectively a shopkeeper. That whole aspect of the journey, going against the tide, breaking the mold in terms of the being a female, obviously prime minister, politician in an era which I would say is completely different to now. The thinking was completely different, and up against the people, and having that mindset, the mentality of doing that. I'm not necessarily saying what she did was all fantastic, and I agree with that. But it's that journey, it's the person's mindset, it's the people.
Yeah, they're incredible, really. Yeah.
So for me, that's another one. The other politician, which is to a certain level, is very, very different from anybody else. There's a guy called Paddy Ashton, who was a Liberal Democrat, and obviously passed away. And I used to look at him and say, you're part of a third, it's a third party. You're not really a major player here, but he talked a lot of sense, and I feel when you look at politicians, and you look at what they're doing. We naturally are very judgmental, and we're very much against them. But there's an element of who the people are, and I maybe because it's my sort of upbringing. My father used to put the news on all the time, and my main job was to translate some of the news. He could understand it mostly, and he used to say, "What's going on here?" And some of them, he used to say, "I'm testing you," but I would say he probably understood about 80% of it, and there's certain aspects he just wanted to add. And he would bring the newspaper and says, "Okay, what's the stories?" So I was always, and it was about the politics was the news. And for me, it's that whole politician that I used to look at, and that's still the craze. I mean, that's not craze, but I've always been interested in, the sort of politicians who make a difference. The amount of change that they have, the drive that they have, and to a certain level, I also see there's an element of us in them as well, because we're about making a difference, making a change. We're doing it slightly differently, but hopefully it's not about megalomaniac power and so forth. It's about actually making a difference as well. But then something goes wrong, or it just goes off on a bit of a tangent, or they lose the focus, and they sometimes it's whether they've not kept their feet on the ground or whatever it is, or they're around the people, they're around different levels of people. So there's an element of negativity that does happen, but their intentions, their starting point, their early journey in terms of the struggle, becoming the first MP, all of that, the growth aspect of it, there's that hunger, there's a desire, and the ingredients, the basic ingredients are usually very good. And then it just goes off on a sort of a
great.
yeah,
great. Well, Saf, it's been a pleasure. Just quickly, if anyone wants to get in touch with you or find any of your businesses, what's the best links and where's the best places?
I'm very proactive, very similar to yourself on LinkedIn. I try and keep up to date. So there's never a day where I wouldn't be checking my LinkedIn. And there's never a day I wouldn't be checking my Twitter. So I'm on LinkedIn, Safaraz Ali. I'm on Twitter, handle is Safaraz Ali. I'm fairly easily fireable. You can find me. I've got it's a little bit of a YouTube channel as well, Safaraz Ali. I put sometimes videos out, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on all social media. Safaraz Ali. Just Google my name. Hopefully, you should be able to find me. I try and try and be responsive to anybody and respond to whatever it is, even if it's me pointing people in the direction.
Brilliant.
But thank you for the opportunity, Dave.
Saf, pleasure as always.